Hey guys, welcome back to the nursery. So I'm not actually in the nursery right now. We are on our way to one of the landscape jobs that we did a few years ago. A really nice coastal Pinellas County landscape. So we're going to meet Bruce Turley, who is the owner, obviously, of the business, but did a lot of design work in years past and designed this one. So we're going to meet Stephen and Bruce there, and we'll go check it out.
So this project was rather interesting because this was one of two property owners that when we began their projects had requested that their landscape and their property look like it was part of the historical natural landscape. Since we're on Boca Ciega Bay and you look down the shoreline, what you see is the tiering of mangroves into cabbage palms, into pine trees and live oaks. Anyway, as the property owner had wanted this property to look like it was part of the natural environment, as you can see surrounding me, we incorporated pine trees and palmettos, cabbage palms, and we do have the existing live oak canopy.
I have a sustainability background, and I always knew about Wilcox's reputation in the community. So they were the only people that I spoke to about putting in a native landscape in my yard. My goal with my landscape was to return my little piece of property to the condition that it might have been in 10,000 years ago. I tried to get rid of all of the non-native and obviously invasive species on the site and create a little forest. My children at the time, about 7 years ago, were about 1 and 2 years old, and I wanted to give them a forest, a Florida forest, to play in.
The property owner, when we came in to design the landscape, had done renovations on the house, creating a very clean, contemporary look. And I love the textures in a lot of our native plants to complement that styling, that very contemporary, clean styling. As you can see, the textures and things like the palmettos behind me, some of our native lilies, the kuntis, they really complement that contemporary look really well.
Now that our yard is 7 years old, it's very mature. Things are growing up beautifully. I couldn't be happier with the landscape, especially in the spring and the summertime.
Well, diversity is really important in native landscaping. It supports and sustains more of the life that we're trying to support in a landscape. It also acts to make the landscape more dynamic and more visually interesting. And you can kind of see that we have the silver buttonwood here, Florida privet. Florida privet's incredible. It just sustains an incredible diversity of birds. Next to that is the firebush, which is one of the really popular plants when people are first doing wildlife gardening because it supports nectaring butterflies, great attractor for migrating hummingbirds, and provides a fruit for the songbirds. It's also very attractive with the blooms and the showy fruit, and at the right time of the year, also the very colorful foliage as it turns with cool weather. Behind that, we do have kind of a hidden marlberry back there, and then the coffee. Both of those plants are adapted to our hammocks or shaded environments. And again, you see the cabbage palm above and the sea grape that was existing in this landscape. And a lot of these kind of diverse hedgerows, also the objective is oftentimes to space things so that the plants are able to have their natural forms, provide their natural ecological benefits through their flowering and fruiting, and reduce maintenance by minimal need for pruning to maintain them. This is a little bit of a tight planting here, a little more than we usually like to do, but we got that very effective screening that we needed to do into the neighbor's side yard. This landscape, of course, is very coastally exposed, so our coastal plants are the best adapted plants for that. This particular plant is beach elder. You can see that it has a rather succulent foliage to it, very well adapted to the deep drained environment of a dune system and to the high salt and wind exposure that you get in that environment. Sea purslane, another one of our coastal plants. It does grow through warm regions throughout the world, and locally you see it in the mangrove system. So it's very well adapted to tidal fluctuations and being inundated in salt water. Makes a great ground cover for these very coastally exposed landscapes, and it's a really pretty plant. Again, like the beach elder, it looks like a succulent plant, and that nature of that plant really makes it well adapted for this environment. So this corner of the landscape represents the very appropriately associated native plants. We're in, again, this very coastal setting. We have a seawall here with white mangroves and the sea purslane growing underneath them and up to the mangroves, right up to the seawall. We have cabbage palms coming in a little further. We have white coastal moonflower growing on the mangroves. That all was part of the natural landscape here. But then we also have coastal spider lily. We have trailing porterweed, our native porterweed, and we have muhly grass. So all of these are things that you would see very commonly associated in a natural landscape or in the wild. And we've duplicated that in this landscape. This is another example of a mixed hedge line, native plants. Mixed hedge line not meaning your typical sheared formal hedge line, but rather a nice mixed diverse line of native plants that support quite a diversity of life. A diversity of plants from pine trees to palmettos to cocoa plums, Spanish stoppers, Jamaica caper. We have goldenrod and porterweeds all mixed in with that, I think, for a really great effect. But we have on the Spanish stopper, we have a corky stem passion vine growing on it. I like to do this in my own yard where I let it grow up onto other plants around it. And they seed pretty freely through the landscape, so as they become overly dominant or overpowering the plant that they're growing on, I'll just remove it, because there's plenty of other ones still growing in my landscape. And I love the fact that they've allowed that to happen in this landscape. Corky stem passion vine, of course, is one of our most common native passion vines, or passion flower. And I always attribute that when you see our common Gulf fritillary butterflies, our state butterfly, the zebra heliconia, that most of those butterflies that we end up seeing in our landscapes we can attribute to this species, because it is so prevalent and grows so widespread and is so adaptable to different growing conditions, which also facilitates the various conditions that the species of butterflies that use it. So this is a great way that you can allow this very important plant ecologically to grow in your landscape, is to let it grow on some of your other shrubs or trees, and then just monitor it and manage it so that you keep it under control, but provides you with great benefit of what wonderful show of butterflies in your landscape. So we need to be thinking about sustainability and how we approach our landscapes. We can't be looking at our landscape with just turf and non-native plants. We need to be using native plants that sustain everything in our chain of life. It brings life into our landscapes and sustains and supports us all.
So sometimes when friends or neighbors come over or comment about the yard, they just get it immediately and they say, wow, what a beautiful yard. I wonder if some people think, we're the crazy people with the forest for a front yard. I'm not sure, but I don't care, because I love my yard. I am so proud of my yard. It's one of my happy places. When I wake up in the morning and I look out onto my yard and I see all of the animals and the insects interacting with the plants, I know that I've done the right thing. I know that I'm helping to preserve what we have left of native Pinellas.
Thanks for watching another one of our fun and informative videos. We look forward to bringing you more of these in the coming months, so make sure to hit that subscribe button, like it, and let us know in the comments what you think or what you'd like to hear in the future. Thanks again, guys.